The first thing I did was make a mistake. I thought I had understood capitalism, but what I had done was assume an attitude, melancholy sadness, toward it. This attitude is not correct. Fortunately, your letter came at that instant. Dear Rupert, I love you every day. You are the world, which is life. I love you, I adore you, I am crazy about you. Love, Marta. Reading between the lines, I understood your critique of my attitude toward capitalism. Always mindful that the critic must studiare da un punto di vista formalistico e semiologico il rapporto fra lingua di un testo e codificazione di un... But here a big thumb smudges the text, the thumb of capitalism, which we are all under. Darkness falls. My neighbor continues to commit suicide once a fortnight. I have his suicides geared into my schedule because my role is to save him. Once I was late and he spent 2 days unconscious on the floor. But now that I have understood that I have not understood capitalism, perhaps a less equivocal position can be hammered out. My daughter demands more Mr. Bubble for her bath. The shrimp boats lower their nets. A book called Humorists of the 18th Century is published. Capitalism places every man in competition with his fellows for a share of the available wealth. A few people accumulate big piles, but most do not. The sense of community falls victim to this struggle. Increased abundance and prosperity are tied to growing productivity. A hierarchy of functionaries interposes itself between the people and the leadership. The good of the private corporation is seen as prior to the public good. The world market system tightens control in the capitalist countries and terrorizes the third world. All things are manipulated to these ends. The king of Jordan sits at his ham radio, inviting strangers to the palace. I visit my assistant mistress. Well, Azalea, I say, sitting in the best chair, what has happened to you since my last visit? Azalea tells me what has happened to her. She has covered a sofa and written a novel. Jack has behaved badly. Roger has lost his job, replaced by an electric eye. Gigi's children are in the hospital being detoxified, all three. Azalea herself is dying of love. I stroke her buttocks, which are perfection, if you can have perfection, under the capitalistic system. It is better to marry than to burn, St. Paul says, but St. Paul is largely discredited now, for the toughness of his views does not accord with the experience of advanced industrial societies. I smoke a cigar to disoblige the cat. Meanwhile, Marta is getting angry. Rupert, she says, you are no better than a damn dog. A plain dog has more sensibility than you when it comes to a woman's heart. I try to explain that it is not my fault but capitalism's. She will have none of it. I stand behind the capitalistic system, Marta says. It has given us everything we have. The streets, the parks, the great avenues and boulevards, the promenades and malls, and other things too that I can't think of right now. But what has the market been doing? I scan the list of the 15 most loved stocks. Occident Pet, 983,100, 25/8 plus 3 3/4. Natomas, 912,300, 58 3/8 plus 18.5. What chagrin! Why wasn't I into Natomas? As into a fine garment that will win you social credit when you wear it to the ball. I am not rich again this morning. I put my head between Marta's breasts to hide my shame. Honoré de Balzac went to the movies. He was watching his favorite flick, The Rise of Capitalism, with Simone Simon and Raymond Radiguet. When he had finished viewing the film, he went out and bought a printing plant for 50,000 francs. Henceforth, he said, I will publish myself in handsome, expensive deluxe editions, cheap editions, and foreign editions, duodecimo, sextodecimo, octodecimo. I will also publish atlases, stamp albums, collected sermons, volumes of sex education, remarks, memoirs, diaries, railroad timetables, daily newspapers, telephone books, racing forms, manifestos, libretti, abecedaries, works on acupuncture, and cookbooks. And then Honoré went out and got drunk and visited his girlfriend's house, and roaring and stomping on the stairs, frightened her husband to death. And the husband was buried, and everyone stood silently around the grave, thinking of where they had been and where they were going. And the last handfuls of wet earth were cast upon the grave, and Honoré was sorry. The achievements of capitalism. A. The curtain wall. B. Artificial rain. C. Rockefeller Center. D. Casals' E-Mystification. "Capitalism sure is sunny," cried the unemployed Laredo toolmaker as I was out walking in the streets of Laredo. "None of that noxious Central European miserablism for us. And indeed, everything I see about me seems to support his position. Laredo is doing very well now, thanks to application of the brilliant principles of the new capitalism. Its gross Laredo product is up and its internal contradictions are down. Catfish farming, a new initiative in the agribusiness sector, has worked wonders. The dram house and the cart house are each 19 stories high. No matter, Azalea says, you are still a damn dog, even if you have unveiled existence." At the Laredo Country Club, men and women are discussing the cathedrals of France, where all of them have just been. Some like Tours, some Lyon, some Clermont. A pious fear of God makes itself felt in this spot. Capitalism arose and took off its pajamas. Another day, another dollar. Each man is valued at what he will bring in the marketplace. Meaning has been drained from work and assigned instead of remuneration. Unemployment obliterates the world of the unemployed individual. Cultural underdevelopment of the worker as a technique of domination is found everywhere under late capitalism. Authentic self-determination by individuals is thwarted. The false consciousness created and catered to by mass culture perpetuates ignorance and powerlessness. Strands of raven hair floating on the surface of the Ganges. Why can't they clean up the Ganges? If the wealthy capitalists who operate the Ganges wig factories could be forced to install sieves at the mouths of their plants, and now the sacred Ganges is choked with hair, and the river no longer knows where to put its flow, and the moonlight on the Ganges is swallowed by the hair, and the water darkens. By Vishnu, this is an intolerable situation. Shouldn't something be done about it? Friends for dinner. The crudité are prepared, green and fresh. The good paper napkins are laid out. Everyone is talking about capitalism, although some people are talking about the psychology of aging, and some about the human use of human beings, and some about the politics of experience. "How can you say that?" Azalea shouts, and Marta shouts, "What about the air?" As a flower moves toward the florist, women move toward men who are not good for them. Self-actualization is not to be achieved in terms of another person, but you don't know that when you begin. The negation of the negation is based on a correct reading of the wrong books. The imminent heat death of the universe is not a bad thing because it is a long way off. Chaos is a position, but a weak one, related to that unfocusedness about which I have forgotten to speak. And now the saints come marching in, saint upon saint, to deliver their message. Here are Saint Albert, who taught Thomas Aquinas, and Saint Almachius, martyred trying to put an end to gladiatorial contests, and Saint Amador, the hermit, and Saint Andrew of Crete, whose great canon runs to 250 strophes, and Saint Anthony of the Caves, and Saint Athanasius the Anthonite, and Saint Aubrey of the Pillar, and many others. Listen, the saints say. He who desires true rest and happiness must raise his hope from things that perish and pass away, and place it in the word of God, so that, cleaving to that which abides forever, he may also together with it abide forever. Alas, it is the same old message. Rupert, Marta says, the embourgeoisement of all classes of men has reached a disgusting nadir in your case. A damn hog has more sense than you. At least a damn hog doesn't go in for the bullet wrapped in sugar, as the Chinese say. She's right. Smoke, rain, abulia. What can the concerned citizen do to fight the rise of capitalism in his own community? Study of the tides of conflict and power in a system in which there is structural inequality is an important task. A knowledge of European intellectual history since 1789 provides a useful background. Information theory offers interesting new possibilities. Passion is helpful, especially those types of passion which are non-licit. Doubt is a necessary precondition to meaningful action. Fear is the great mover in the end.